All right, so you can calculate how many days have happened between two dates, and you can calculate either the interest or the principal or the rate or the time based on the I equals PRT formula. Now we're going to take this one step further because that little formula calculates the value of the interest you earn. But what you sometimes want to know is how much you end up with at the end, right? So that introduces this new idea of the time value of money, because as you earn more interest, you have more money overall, right? So let's say you give your friend $20 or you give the bank $20. Well, at the end of a year, even with simple interest, you're going to have $20, but you're also going to have all the interest you made. So whether you're looking at that money today when you hand over your $20 or you're looking at it a year from now with the interest included, the value is going to change, right? So this idea of that change in value is really important, and you'll see why as we work through the problems. So that value in a year's time with the interest included is called the future value. And yeah, how much you have at the end. It's also referred to as the maturity value. And I'm sure I put that. So it's the principal plus the interest, as I just explained. So this is what I was trying to get to. So the future value, the official formula is S equals P for principal plus I for interest, right? So your original principal plus how much interest you just made. And we were just calculating how to do the interest. So you just learned how to do that in the previous few videos, right? So my only comment about this in terms of trying to remember this formula is I'm not sure why they put S there, because really future value doesn't start with S, but you know what? This is the official formula. So in case you run into it somewhere else, I need you to kind of recognize it. So we'll leave them with the S anyways. All right. So the question I have here is like, do you think you have to remember this? Like, I'm going to put it on a formula sheet for you. But in terms of like, are you going to try to memorize this? Well, as long as you remember that down the road, after you've made interest, how much money you have is the principal plus your interest. You don't actually have to memorize this. Just saying. Okay. It's up to you. All right. So here's our example. I think I have 3 examples for this one. So let's start with this one. So Paul invested this much. He earned interest value this much. What was the maturity value of his investment? So like the title says, this stuff is fall over easy. Like you're not even using any of those fancy things there. This one just asks you like, do you know what the value is going to be at the end of the situation? And the principal being this, and the interest earned is that. So how much you have at the end is going to be the two together. So 2,200 plus 240, which gives you 2,440, right? That's all this question's asking you for. It is like no big secret. All right. So remember, at the end of any question, you have to put a full sentence. Maturity value of Paul's investment is $2,440. Okay. All right. So let's back up here again, take another good look at this, and then we are going to take a look at what we were working with before, which was the calculation for interest. Because you're not always going to be told, like in that previous one, what the value of the interest is. Sometimes you have to work it out. In fact, most times you have to work it out. So what you can see here is you can actually take this whole thing, and because it is all equal to I, you can actually substitute it into there because I is equal to PRT. So you can take that. Remember when we were doing algebra and you like combined a couple of equations so that you could solve for something else, right? So that's what this one is doing. So we're substituting in there. And because we've got P here and P here, you can actually change it up a little more. You can go, let's take those out. You can go P into 1 plus RT. So you could do it that way too. And sometimes this version is a little easier. And this is another one that you'll get on a formula sheet so that you have it for later. Okay. The thing to remember here is that whenever you have to calculate anything like this, you're always going to get at least 3 of these 4 things. You've got S, P, R, and T. So one of them will be missing and you'll have the other 3. Okay? So if you're not sure what you're calculating, just look to see what you have and it'll be the other one. All right. In these questions, because they will eventually get a little complicated, I want you to get used to using a timeline to talk about where the money is at, what you're trying to calculate, what direction you're calculating in, so that you can kind of figure out what's going on, okay? So from here on, any question like this, you're going to actually get marks for drawing this little timeline thing. So I'm going to model it for you each time we do a question now so that you can see how this works. So here's the question down here at the bottom. Suzette invested $800 in a 210-day term. That was nice of them. We didn't have to calculate it. Term deposit at 2.75%. PA means per annum or per year, okay? And they want to know what's the future value of the deposit. So you got to calculate the value of the interest in dollars, and then you're going to add that to the principal, right? All right, so let's write it all in. She started off with 800, so that'll be on the left. 210 days takes her all the way to the other end. And over here, you have this mysterious number, which will be called S for the future value. And you have to figure out what S is. Okay, so I'm going to make the timeline a little smaller to make space for my calculations here. So we're going to extract all of the data now into our regular space. So principal is 800, time is 210 over 365. Your rate is 2.75%, so that's how it's written in decimals. And here is our formula. So you could have written the 2 formulas and then put it in and all of that. Like doing all of that stuff, you're definitely showing that you understand what's happening. But if you start with this, that's okay too. Okay? So now that we have all of the pieces, we need S, we have P, we have R, we have T. So we just plug them all into the formula like this, substitute all the values in, and then you get out your handy dandy calculator, type in all the numbers, and you get 812.657534. Unless I typed one of the numbers wrong. And then we're going to express that as a full sentence. So you get the future value of Suzette's investment is $812.66. How did I get 66 cents? Well, it's 65.7, right? So that 7 being 5 or greater is going to increase the number before it by 1, being the 5 by 1 decimal place. So it ends up becoming a 6 instead. Okay? So that's the answer to the first problem. Let's try another one. So I've already drawn the diagram out here for you. August 15th, established a line of credit at its bank at 8.75%. Line of credit was used to purchase $5,000 in inventory. So there's the money that you borrowed. So a credit at its bank is a loan, right? A line of credit is a loan. Lowrider paid this many dollars to satisfy the debt at the end. So on what date did they satisfy it? So we need to find the time that got, actually, it's not going to go there, the time that got us from here to here. And once we know how long that is in years, we can work out to be how many days, and then we can calculate date, right? So principal is 5,000. We're just going to take these out here. And we're going to extract the data. Future value is that. The rate is that. And now we've got our formula, and the piece that's missing is t. So let's write everything in except the t. We'll just leave the t in there, okay? Because we don't know what it is. So we'll just write everything else in. And now we're going to try and solve for t. So back to our algebra here. So first thing you can do is take the 5,000 and carry it across to the other side. So you're going to divide that by 5,000. And that gives you that number. And then you can carry the 1 over. So you're going to take this 1 and put it over there, and it becomes a -1. So you subtract the 1 from that side. So you end up with a 0. And then you have that number is equal to that number times t. So again, you're going to take this and port it over to the other side. And that is going to leave t on the right-hand side all by its little self. And you have the 0.22, blah, 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 divided by 0.08, blah, blah, blah. And that calculation works out to be t, which is 0.260274, right? Now that is how many years has gone after August 15th. So now you got to figure out what is it they wanted in, they want the date. So you need to know how many days. So the time is going to be now that many, that's how many years. You're going to multiply it by that to give you days, right? So that works out to be 95 days. So now you can look up the dates, the serial numbers for the dates, right? So go look up August 15th on your serial number chart, and then add 95 to that and look up the new number. So August 15th is 227 plus 95 is 322. And whatever day of the year that is, day number 322, that is going to be the date that goes over here on the right-hand side. So what, in fact, is that date? It is November 18th, 2021. So you're going to finish off with a lovely little statement for style. Lowrider Automotive honored the line of credit on November 18th, 2021. All right. So so I'm hoping that you're doing these ahead of me so that you're not kind of waiting for me to tell you the answer. Like each time, do that, right? Take a look at the problem. Try to do it at this stage before you watch the answer go by. Okay? Learn a little more that way. All right, so here we go. Peer registers for a business conference today. During the early bird sale, $449 instead of paying the full price of $499 in 5 months from now. So $499 is over here. Had he not registered today, he would have invested the money in bonds yielding 7% return. What is his true savings? So this is actually a two-part question, because we have to figure out how much he would have made if he'd invested it here, right? And see how different that is from $499 in order to figure out what he actually saved, right? So that's why it's relevant in this environment because he had a savings, he would have been making interest, and we need to calculate how much he would have ended up with. So let's write it all out. Principal is $449. Time is 5 months, so 5 over 12 years. Rate is 0.07. That's the 7%. And here is the formula. So you actually have all the information you need to do this. I'm going to encourage you to pause the video right here and see how far you can get through the rest of the calculation before watching the answer, okay? All right, so let's do the rest of the calculation now. Your future value, S, is equal to P. We're just going to plug all of the pieces in. P into 1 plus R, the rate, and T, the time, 5 over 12. So this happens to be one of the easier ones because you don't have to like do any kind of crazy stuff to find R or T or anything in there, right? Just plug all the numbers in, run them through your calculator, and you get that. And then you get that. I did it in stages. Sometimes it's a good idea to do this because if you like miscalculate something, you can get some points for doing some of it right. So the savings from his purchase. So this is how much he would have had if he had invested it, right? But what he was going to have paid was $499. So by paying earlier, he would have had paid, his savings would have been that $499 minus what he actually paid. So he actually saved $36.90 because the value of what he would have paid here is greater than the value of what he would have made if he had invested it. So this is the final bill, and this was the investment, right? So let's take away this, gives us $36.90, and that's how much he saved. If his investment had paid off more than the cost of the final bill, then he wouldn't have saved anything, and he'd be regretting having not invested his money. And it would have been a really rotten question to give you, but yeah. So finishing it off, Pierre's true savings from getting the early bird ticket is $36.90. And that is the last of the problems from that section of simple interest. The next video will take you into the next section.